Here's some gauze I purchased at the local pharmacy. 2 rolls of 2 meters by 10 centimeters for €2 each. I rolled them out and put each of them into a plastic bowl. I wanted to make olive green and sand color camo netting. For the olive green version I mixed olive and dark green in equal portions. I added alcohol until I got a watery consistency. The gauze was already soaking wet from a water and liquid hand soap mixture. The soap breaks the water's surface tension, which makes it easier for the gauze to absorb the water and the diluted paint. I added the acrylics and alcohol mixture and carefully stirred it a bit with the paintbrush. The gauze should be covered completely, and that's what I did after taking the pigs. For the sand color camo netting I used Revell acrylics I had since 2009. They were still in perfect shape. Since I have to be thinned with water, adding alcohol didn't appear to be a good idea. I used water and liquid soap again, and here you see it with the first paint, sandy yellow, which is desert yellow. And here the Africa brown, which is dunkelgelb I guess, is added and the mixture is stirred up thoroughly. After I poured it over the gauze, I saw that this wouldn't be the color I wanted, but at least I wanted to see how this would work with Revell paints. The longer you leave the gauze in its paint bath, the darker the coloration will turn out. The 2 rolls were taken out of the bowls after 3 hours and wrung out carefully. Don't be deceived, they're still wet and that makes them look darker than they actually are. One thing was clear, using Tamiya acrylics worked perfectly. This was just too short to get the shades I wanted. The Revell paints weren't exactly a disappointment, but they kept dripping from the gauze after I hung it to dry. That didn't happen with the Tamiya paints. I haven't got a scientific explanation for this, so I'm only guessing that the thinner water might be the reason. Maybe it dries too slowly. It may also be the reason for the big differences in the result with darker spots here and there. Since the results were too light and the sand color didn't turn out the way I wanted, I decided to cut the rolls into halves and give each half a different color. These 2 bottles were almost empty, so I used 1 paint each for 1/2 of the gauze rolls. For the other 2 halves I mixed different colors. Dancing till the crack of dawn, making love on. Of course I left the gauze longer in the paint solutions than before. I expected that one day would give me a better result. In fields of gold shall we both trod around the world. And here are the 4 pieces of gauze in the 4 colors after they were completely dried. If you want them darker, just leave them longer in their bath. Since there'll be washes and dry brushing affecting the colors, I decided to use the camo netting in these shades. All pieces neatly rolled up again, 1 meter each. That's a lot of camo netting.
Holding hands, love's pantomime, shooting glances time to time. The champagne bubbles, Cupid's brew, to usher in the rising moon. Oh, my heart whistles a happy tune. I'm in just that.
I bought a large bag of oregano a couple of years ago. It looks greener than it is. It turned brown with a light greenish hue. The way it looked, it couldn't be used for spring or summer foliage. I used a bit of the first mixture I made for the camo netting. Olive and dark green, alcohol and soapy water. The oregano was just moist. Then I put it into a larger bowl to let it dry. While drying, it should be moved by lightly shaking the bowl from time to time. You should crumble it now and then to keep the leaves from sticking together. And here it is. Again, it looks greener than it really is, but I got the color I hoped for. This is a matter of personal taste, and you should mix the paints according to your taste. Keep in mind that the result will never be as dark as the color you used. Even for a light green, you'll have to use a darker green. Parsley and oregano are very different. Parsley is a delicate herb and demands careful handling. I used it for the Normandy farm wall of my D-Day+2 dio, but it didn't turn out the way I wanted it. It absorbed the diluted PVA glue and looked like green mashed potatoes. My goal now was to give it a couple of different colors and seal it in one step. My first idea was to make wine leaves as they look like at the beginning of autumn. The way to color them should be the same as with the oregano. Not much paint, just enough to cover all the leaves. I only had clear red, but pigments are pigments, right? No, not really. The paint only colored the lightest spots on the parsley. I'm not quite sure anymore why I gave clear yellow a go after I saw what happened with the clear red. The result wasn't what I had expected, but I'll show you what I mean in a couple of minutes. You'll see all pics of the colored and dried parsley in a row. That makes it easier to tell the differences. My impression was that the parsley was still too dark to let me dye it properly. I decided to use buff to lighten the rest of the leaves. It isn't easy to tell, but it worked. Now that I've finished working on it, I guess that white would have even been better. The next color I used was flat brown to represent dead or at least dying leaves. This should have been the first color to use, but the complete work on the parsley was an experiment, so I used the colors in the order that came to mind. The last color was clear orange. Remember what I said about how to dry the leaves. Here's the parsley I colored with clear red. Not exactly what I wanted, but I like the result. It'll do the job. The clear yellow did something I didn't expect. It turned the green darker. Well, there'll be use for it. Here you can see what I really like about parsley. It looks like natural leaves. The result with the flat brown was predictable. The clear orange did what I had hoped the clear yellow would do. To me, an aqueous hobby color are very different. All four colors in glasses. I had these for a very long time and they really looked dead. First thing to do was to soften them in my water and soap mixture. Then I recycled the first paint mixture I used for the camo netting. I left the grass in there for 2 days. According to the respective base colors, the coloration turned out differently. I really love the result. In my opinion, it looks even better than the natural colors. In one of my oldest videos, you saw that I used this for camo netting. This tea was drunk and the tea bags dried in 2008 or 9. The most amazing thing was the strong peppermint aroma after all these years. As you can see, the tea is mainly dark brown. I wanted it to be lighter and more to the green side. My choice of colors was buff and dark green. You already know the other ingredients. I made a lot of that solution because I was quite sure that it'll take more than just covering all the pieces. I left the tea in the bath for 2 full days. Next was an attempt to lighten the dark brown. This time I used white and buff. Drying the tea thoroughly also took 2 days. You should make sure that it's really dry to prevent it from going moldy. The differences turned out subtle but visible. You can use them separately or as a mixture. They look good on camo netting or as fallen leaves, but also on bushes or trees. There are many things you can use as foliage, and here are some examples. Of course, you can buy aftermarket leaves, or you can buy these stamps that cut out leaf shapes from dead leaves. I've got a couple of very personal reasons not to use them. The first one is the money I'd have to spend. I only spend money on things that make sense to me. With regards to the stems, I've got 3 more reasons. For me, it's too much work to cut out enough leaves to cover a complete tree. Dead leaves are quite thick, and that's why I think they're out of scale. The leaves need to be dyed too. Oh yes, I just did it in this video, but I used stuff I already had. There wasn't more work nor money involved. I wouldn't have the patience to glue that stuff leaf by leaf to a tree instead of sprinkling them on. I admire those who can do it, but that's nothing I want to do. Do the aftermarket leaves look more realistic? I don't know. I really don't know, but taking a look at pics I took when I was walking the dogs makes clear that it's impossible to make out distinctive leaf shapes on these pics. Why should I torture myself with this stuff? We are working with scale, and in my opinion some things can be way over the top. Definitely a matter of personal taste and preference, but for me these simple things are good and realistic enough. I'm not taking my dyes to shows, and so I won't come across judges who might be nuts for aftermarket leaves. I avoid aftermarket items as much as possible. That goes especially for things I can make myself with a result I like enough to be really happy with it. If you see it the same way too, you might want to give this a try. A last tip: keep herbs you didn't color in bottles made from brown glass. It keeps the damaging effects of light out, and so there won't be any discoloration. A coat of lead clear after using them should seal the leaves for quite a while. I bought these bottles at my local pharmacy, but you can also get them off Amazon. In the meantime, I filled the herb tea into one of these bottles too.